Welcome to the Meadow and Hawk Collective. In this video, we're going to be tapping in to whatever message, whatever is meant to come through regarding the ingress of the planet Neptune into the cardinal fire sign of Aries in about 30 minutes from when I'm recording this. This huge astrological transit, this ingress of Neptune into Aries for the next 14 years. So Neptune is currently, as I speak, literally at the 11th hour of his movement through the mutable water sign of Pisces. He made this ingress in April of 2011. So this is a big transit. Soon after, Saturn will also go into Aries. And what this feels like is it's kind of like the cosmic push. There's no room for hesitation or second guessing or playing in the kind of realm of ideas. It's really moving into a time of a lot of momentum and a lot of supported action to be kind of in the stance of taking up the metaphorical bow and arrow as a representative of our inner core values, beliefs, and this kind of transit as the return, the heightening of spiritual sovereignty and individuality, kind of anywhere where we feel kind of murky or our sense of self has become diluted and kind of siphoned off into all of these other external sources, the government, this job, this agency, this friend, this partner, this belief system, this ideology. A lot of these, and this is also part of the wider cosmic story of also Pluto into Aquarius, is a lot of the ways that we've been able to hide behind some sort of using that kind of nebulous term system or structure. Any ways that we've been kind of playing into the story that we don't have power or that we don't have agency, all of that is really gonna come forth with the intention that it kind of be dissolved in that sacred fire. Yes, so any way over the past 14 years, we've really been quite deeply initiated into deeper and deeper. And the part of this dance through the zodiac is it's very deeply intelligent, and there's a divine design and a process to this. There's a deep, I think about the Fibonacci sequence and the ways that nature is so mathematically sacred and so perfect in its construction. And so part of this marching, this procession of the planets from Pisces into Aries is that in Pisces we learn trust and we learn surrender and we learn to kind of let something dissolve before it can be kind of the image is put into the kiln and fired. First it's clay, first it's moldable and shapeable and impressionable, and we can kind of play with it and alter it. And then it kind of enters this heat where it's distilled and it's solid and it can stand on its own. And as part of this midwifing of the collective into Saturn and Neptune in Aries, is there's a need to fully take responsibility and claim our lives as kind of, it's helpful to kind of, I find with all of this Aries energy, to kind of think about the hero or the heroine's journey as a template, as kind of really tuning in, not in this kind of navel gazing, narcissistic way where everything is about us, but this kind of true way where we are really the hero or the heroine of our own story, and that only we have lived through our lives and can make decisions that are the best for us, and only we, this idea of gnosis, of deep reflection, and that we're in many ways ready to stand on our own feet now. We're ready to take a stand for something, to um, become spiritual warriors, not necessarily in a violent way, although perhaps a shadow side of this time could be perhaps a heightening of so-called like holy wars, this idea of being willing to fight, to commit violence, to shed blood over an idea, a religion, prophecy, a spiritual truth of a certain group. There is for sure the potential for this to be kind of coming up in a heightened way in order for us to be able to learn the lesson of the opposite sign, Libra, how to be in justice and truth. In order for there to be justice, everyone must have a voice, everyone must be able to speak and to express what is true for them, and then to hold it in this divine court, this hearing of this idea of plurality that we've learned in Pisces, that multiple things can be true, but at the same time, being able to hold all of these perspectives. But at the individual level, being able to take a stand for something, to, as I'm speaking right now, I'm feeling this energy of conviction, this energy of confidence, this energy of trust, this kind of like downward flowing thing where it's like we've culminated something in Pisces, we've learned a lot, we've distilled something, and then it's ready to fly. It's ready to be released, to kind of come out of some sort of stagnation. There's kind of a quickening for sure happening, and the invitation to allow our deep-seated truths to get really curious, like what is my individual personal philosophy of life, of why am I here ultimately, and then allowing that kind of Piscean why am I here in a body thing to move into Aries, to kind of animate like the life breath into impacting all of the actions, work in the world, relationships, allowing kind of the numinous spark to kind of come into being and to become real, to become manifest after that kind of firing kiln process by our being, to be the warriors, the kings, the queens of our own lives, and then to weave something greater together, because all of us are actually being in full, and I don't think it's a surprise or a coincidence or an accident that a lot of these kind of Aries qualities have become very popular topics of discussion and kind of buzzwords in the collective pop culture and scholarship and media. These terms, authenticity, original essence, sovereignty, a lot of these terms that have been coming up, they're coming up because they are the tools that we need to learn to step into this next 14-year period with Neptune and Aries, in addition to next 20 years of Pluto and Aquarius. Is this Aquarius Aries connection is pretty prominent right here, of being a part of a collectivity but not needing to become the same in order to belong. That's really, really huge. I think about like how like an all-girls Catholic school and we're wearing the same uniforms and it's like we belong and we're allowed to enter the premise, but only because we've stripped everything that is us away and become the same. And that's no longer something that's cosmically tolerated. It is, how can I belong and contribute my gifts in this deeply Plutonic Aquarian way where we're re-envisioning collectivity, we're re-envisioning what it means to belong to humanity as a member of the Earth family. But with this, the beautiful thing about Aquarius and Aries, this fire, this air and fire sign, which kind of forms that sextile aspect, is there's a lot of harmony there. There's a lot of original thinking. individuality not as sometimes this like shadowy leonine essence where it's rulership over someone else. Of course, the another aspect of Leo is this just super bright heart courage that is kind of this campfire that we can all gather around and be inspired by. And it's not power over, it's power with. So there's a huge push to how can I not abandon what is true in order to belong? Because as Brene Brown, a lot of her work is around this topic. If we're being the same in order to belong, we're not really, that's not true belonging, of course, because we've abandoned ourselves, and then we kind of have this distance between who we are and what the persona is that belongs. So there's kind of this need to kind of close that divide in a lot of ways. Beautiful, beautiful. So I'm going to set up a spread for us. This Neptune into Aries ingress. Wow. The image is like I think of that kind of like song, red in the morning, sailor's warning, red at night, sailor's delight, and just like this flaming red sun, the sunrise coming up over the water as it's kind of been stirred and churned. And we've kind of, since 2011, have had this cycle of deep, a lot of people have been called onto spiritual paths of deep introspection. What do I believe? Why am I here? These deeply existential Neptune and Pisces. Why am I here? These big questions. And then this next natural movement of Neptune into Aries is like, and what do I do about that? Like, I have this knowledge, this knowing of, perhaps on a deeper level than ever before, like my role in my family community, this larger cosmic story. What does it mean? And how does that no longer just become like a hobby that I dabble in, and I step my toe into like spiritual topics, as like I'm interested in music and football and spirituality, like it's just kind of thrown into the mix as another kind of hobby or sort of interesting quirk. But as we've been seeing over these past 14 years, and probably before then too, is a lot of scientific credence being given to a lot of these so-called spiritual esoteric ideas, which were once fringe. A lot of the ideas of like quantum physics and cellular biology, a lot of these ideas about how consciousness is biology is consciousness, the divine is conscious, the conscious is the divine. Like there's a lot of the weaving of things that were once esoteric. There's a need for it to become real in a sense. I think about Aries as that moment of birth, like where this being was in these like nebulous Neptunian womb waters, and then kind of comes through with, blood and intensity and this moment of contraction, and then becomes something that can stand on its own. Well, not initially, obviously. Babies are very vulnerable and soft initially. So that's also a message around being gentle with the process, and then kind of noticing and feeling this heat and this pressure and this urgency, this deep urgency for the external world to change pretty immediately, to kind of be like, okay, I'm feeling this urgency, but also knowing that it might take some time. Of course, as for the first initial year, especially, Neptune kind of has this kind of transient quality, or I believe, I'll have to double check, but I think it's gonna retrograde, I think, back into Pisces, perhaps not before fully being into Aries, but just kind of giving yourself some grace as we dance with these changes. Neptune into Aries. What are we invited to know? Okay, a lot of pentacles coming out. Yes. Allowing inner vision. Okay, beautiful. Okay. The Ten of Pentacles in the reverse position reminds me of what I was speaking about earlier in terms of this message of doing the right thing, looking to others for the answers, kind of allowing the life path to be completely shaped by a preset, like a prefabricated idea of success, idea of what's a good and moral life. All of that in Aries is really brought into question and can potentially be the catalyst, the push that we need in order to really look within and say, if it hasn't happened yet in Pisces and Aries, there's a huge, it's like a reality check, a wake-up call, a huge wake-up call of I need to get real about the fact that there is a discrepancy between a sense of purpose and calling and why I get up in the morning and what I've accumulated and have in my outer life to show for what I have so-called done, or my level of success. There's a need to recalibrate the inner compass in order to say, is what I'm doing worth it according to the metrics that I've created for myself? Is huge with Aries. The sign of, in medical astrology, the head, like the head of the state, the head of the, we think about like the head as a metaphor for like if the nation's a body, like the head is the ruler, the person who's a way shower, a leader. And there's a need to kind of bring the leadership back home in order to, this could lead to a lot of disillusionment. Neptune a lot of times dances with that theme of the mists being burned away as Neptune enters Aries, of waking up and one day being like, this job, this relationship doesn't work, like it's not fulfilling, and I've been working on it for a while. This is a message that came through similarly in the Aries new moon solar eclipse video that I released a few days ago, of it's time to put it down. And this is so Neptunian, this rainbow image of the Ten of Cups, the Ten of Pentacles in the reverse position, and the Ten of Cups upright. What is the value? What is the dream? And it might not look like this. Maybe it's in the prismatic image of the rainbow. What is distilled is different than this, but what is it? And there's a need to, Temperance in the reverse position. It's like the process of transmutation and transformation, it truly is internal this time, and it's becoming more and more, and it's kind of like a quip, like a little buzzy thing to say that's like, oh, once you heal yourself, then that's the way that the world changes. But that is really true more than ever before, that by focusing on the ecosystem that you're in and planting these through embodied service. I think about Neptune, huge qualities of selfless giving, unconditional love, serving, being of the highest good, asking what would love do in this moment. And Aries, it's an action. It's my friend or this friend of a friend just had a baby. I'm going to go over and bring her food for a while. I'm going to do her laundry. I think about this elderly person in my life, and they might be lonely, so I'm going to go over and read them a story or play a board game or share a meal or a moment or a sunset. Like, it's no longer so much like I think about the term like astral travel and these very Piscean ideas about like it's very up in the ethers. It's very like spiritual evolution through this kind of like hermit mystic path. Interesting that we're in the year of the hermit, so we're kind of closing that out too, of like this isolated quest, but it's kind of just it's this like etheric, non-literal quality. It's very in the dream realm. It's very up here. And then Aries kind of brings it all down and is like, okay, how do I, what is, if love's the engine that's animating this whole thing, where's the vehicle going? Like, what's it, is it, how are my actions, supporting or not, the highest value of love? How is love being embodied in acts of care and support? Again, asking us to rethink this martyr narrative, which can sometimes be a part of the Neptune archetype, especially in Pisces. The martyr is dead. Like there's no one else to blame. There's nowhere else to point the finger. The message is coming through very, very, very strong, kind of on a wave of heat, that there's a need to recalibrate the compass in order to truly be in relationships with other people in ways that don't leave us feeling quietly hateful and resentful, and to no longer find authority truly anywhere else. Not that we aren't, of course, always in this I think we need to find a new word for compromise, because it's like a co-mingling. It's a creating the sacred third, where there is 1 + 1 = 3, that kind of sacred truth. And so that there is like a new huge potentiality opening up, and we really are invited to look within for the answers. Really, 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 really look within when it's so chaotic out there, when you're like, shit, that doesn't make sense what this person is saying, and I'm still kind of in this like identity signaling dance where the people I belong to, so-called belong to, think I need to say this thing in order to get belonging, but that doesn't really make sense. But what's the alternative? Like, these are all of the questions that we're kind of being invited into. A lot of these kind of broader ideas about like cancel culture and just very rigid politics and yes, no, and like left, right. It's very, not a hot take, but the polarization is kind of, there's a deeper meaning to that. Like, I think about like the pole star, like the center, the central axis, that when there's only 2 ways that you can be legitimated in your belonging as a human, there's a need to really get curious about that and to bring everything into center. And when everyone is truly living from a central axis of truth place, that just doesn't make sense. Multiplicity could be the only solution, could be the only reality. If there were so many expressions and ways to express the divine, like if we look at the natural world, we're not like to an owl, like it's wrong to be awake in the night. Like there's a whole group of beings who are nocturnal, and we're not going to say like, are you nocturnal, or are you like, do you sleep in the night, and is that like a measure of your goodness and like your legitimacy as a human? That's a weird example, but I think the point where I'm trying to go on this kind of wave of energy that's coming in is superficial belonging can no longer be tolerated, and there's a need to return to a lot of the wisdom that has been passed generations and on all of our lineages. There were people who stood up who risked things for what they believed in, who trusted some vision that they had and weren't deterred by kind of, I'm thinking about what's coming through right now is like the Wizard of Oz, how it's like this little old man who's pretty kind, but this illusion when he's in this curtained enclosure, and he's like this booming voice with like the way theatrics kind of, and this kind of works for a lot of really big entities that are scary and kind of this like bullying tactic. And there's, with Pluto and Aquarius, it's like the curtain is coming back and we're like, oh, the Oz guy is a really old man. Like there's this theme of the old man, like the king that is aged and dying, the theme of the ruler that is clearly on its last leg. But with the smoke and the mirrors, they seem very, very powerful. But with Pluto and Aquarius, it's really bringing all of that into question and kind of showing us the ways that the answers really, 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 truly have to come from within. And in order to make lasting changes and to live in a world that we're happy with, we have to bring it in to the inner council and be willing to open the literal and the spiritual ears to listen to what is being called, and the directions that we're being called into. It can no longer be like a blind passageway of checking boxes and kind of doing the thing that's expected of us. And as I'm speaking right now, I'm getting kind of congested, which is interesting because I didn't have that when starting this video. So there's something around congestion. It's like as something is getting burned away, first it's kind of uncomfortable. It's a little hard to, I think about breath as the connection to spirit. If we're destabilized and kind of looking to everyone else for the answer, there's spiritual congestion. It's confusing. We're like, what's up and what's down? And that's kind of part of the design. The part of the design is to be so spiritually with a gun against our heads, which I don't love that metaphor, but so up against the clock, because with Aries there is this urgency. There's this like, okay, the race has begun, the baton has been passed, it's go time. And so getting really excited about that possibility with Pluto and Aquarius too, of reimagining. I think about how so many of our structures in the United States and elsewhere, like the generation post World War II, the boomers, the Pluto in Leo generation, who's having their Pluto opposition now that Pluto is in Aquarius, it's like all of those structures of security, of like expected, like the house in the suburbs, not that couldn't be true. Like if the house in the suburbs is genuinely coming from this, like it's from the heart, it's not from this top-down approach where it's like a dream that's been, the siphon thing is coming back up. So it's not like a dream that's been fed to you subliminally through cartoons or from the people in your grade school or your families, like the way that we know that Abigail is doing all right as if she's married and has a 9-to-5 and 2.5 kids. Like it's no longer that. It's more like this idea of multiplicity. Like there's gonna be so many more life ways that are opening up, and a lot of it is old life ways, ancient life ways of living more in a way that's attuned to cycles and to rhythms and to, like, there's no two flames that are the same. Like they are the same basic, they're the constituency, the essence is the same, but they're different in their expression. One flame is dancing this way and that. If they're in the same room, if 2 candles are lit and they're 1 inch apart, the flames are going to be doing different things. And there's something in that around doing work around candle magic at this time, gazing reflections, like work with obsidian mirrors or gazing into the surface of bodies of water magic, this kind of Wheel of Fortune. And it's like there's so much. Okay, so it's, I think about like the not Peter Pan, who's the guy, he's Robin Hood, stealing from the rich, giving to the poor. That's an interesting message that I'm feeling right now, is not in, of course, it can go kind of in a dark direction where like at the nation state level, which again, Pluto and Aquarius, we're thinking this is like the outmoded thing that kind of tends towards violence anyways, like the world of warring nations, when they kind of take this Neptunian Aries energy in a non-conscious way, and they're just feeling it because we're all beings in the cosmos picking up on these energies if we believe in it or not, again, this could be justification for further warring, which is frustrating. But at the individual, I think about the Robin Hood thing of when we're stealing from the rich, giving to the poor. That's very literal for Pluto in Aquarius and Neptune in Aries. Stealing from the rich, giving to the poor. Like the need to, at a mythic and an archetypal level, transfer something from an area that is either corrupt or unjust, and kind of not waiting for permission. Like he's not like let's set up a committee to make sure that we can really like take these funds and like let's vote on it, and let's make sure that, and let's like make this policy and this institution to uphold this policy. And there's like the bureaucracy of that is not present in the Robin Hood thing. He's like, okay, let's like crowdsource this. Let's like not even crowdsource. Let me take full responsibility for my desire to give to the poor, or to make the world a better place, or to help children, or to make sure I'm a responsible steward of Gaia, of the earth. And let's make sure that my actions and my work as a calling, the idea of like vocation, calling versus job, that whole thing is gonna come up. I feel that the wheel turns because people feel that they have the ability to make change. If nobody believed they had the ability to make change, nothing would change, because we would be in this cosmic like Piscean soup forever. I love Pisces, but a part of that is kind of this just like swirling around the drain thing, this gyre energy, where it's like it's going around and around and around, but it's still in the sink. It's not in the ocean where it's going like rivulets that we didn't imagine before. That's a weird train of thought. Okay, so the Wheel of Fortune. The ways that like there's some sort of karmic thing here though, where it's like when we're in integrity and we're like, what if I were to speak what is true right now, and I were to like literally break apart all of the ideas that I have for how I'm supposed to speak in order to signal to others that I'm sane and that I belong. If I were to truly listen and seek the truth and the guidance from within, how would that guide me to move and to be in the world? And there's a ways that bravery, I think about like the serpent on this card, this like serpentine wisdom of it's going down to come up. It's not afraid of darkness or contraction, or like the serpent as an emblem of the goddess, of the feminine, the ways that, again, no surprise, a lot of the current ways of being are not working, as it can be seen in probably every single measure of measuring. Like, I don't know. It's like the central axis is turning. The central axis is turning, and people who are tuned into this energy, this current of justice, in that they are being just towards themselves. They are living according to their own doctrine, their own philosophy, they are sovereign. They are ruling they're seated. It's not like nobody's home and they're just kind of this like attendant person who's circumambulating. They're calling all of their power back to them. They're becoming, it's like the lights are on in somebody's home. The lights are on in somebody's home. There's this wake-up call. Eventually, over these next 14 years, we're going to be seeing a lot of huge shifts of the kind of wider backing. And that will, of course, transform top down, bottom up, both sideways in, like the ways that things look. But it's these brave people who are willing to say, okay, like I don't want to live on this, like I'm kind of tired of like living in this condo in the city. Like, what would it be like if I like went over this hill? Like, what's on the other side of this hill? And like, what if I were to look within for the template, the map, if the map's within and no longer without, where would I go? What would I try? What would I experiment? How would I use my vital life force energy, the kind of this energy as this sacred unit of the thing that animates this and makes it together. How would I use this precious life force energy, and what beauty would I want to create in the world? Like Neptune is like the highest ideal of beauty, dancing with this kind of, people say the upper octave of Venus. I don't know if I really jive with the whole upper lower octave thing. They're their own things, they're their own beings, they're their own essences and gods and forces of life. But there's a truth to Neptune as high beauty, like, and the kind of myth of Plato, the ideal. But I think that gets kind of confused. I think it's more the highest, like your platonic ideal. Get really curious about that. What is when I picture how I'm living in the world, what a day is like. When I picture that, what is that? And how can I bring that out just 5% more one day at a time? How do I make this? I think about the term that people say, like, returning to Eve in a sense, heaven on earth, that term, heaven on earth. And it's like, if life is experience, if it looks like hell on earth, there is, the Wheel of Fortune is kind of dividing the spread, where it's a change in perspective, a reorientation, a recalibration first is necessary in order to come home to the throne of our beings, to these kind of mythic kingdoms of being emissaries of love and of justice. The ways that we cultivate and shape the outer worlds and invite beauty in is being radically re-envisioned, which is really, really beautiful. Yeah, feeling this Knight of Swords energy right now as I'm speaking. Like, the words feel like it's just a flow. It's coming. The flow is coming in. Yeah, this disillusioning energy. So no longer, again, it's just coming through again. And now that the message is coming back around, I'm feeling this energy of completion. So I think I'm going to stop right here. But it's like the union is first within. It's first within. And when we can no longer blame or kind of blame outer circumstances for why heaven isn't on earth, but we're fully like, the lights are on and we're home, we're able to more readily, not bypass or deny that there are hellish realities on earth, but to say, that's one option. Let's go back to the drawing board, and what other options do we want to create? So many blessings, and I think this message is complete.